big Hollywood sunglasses and light the torch, because it's cellar time. Welcome to the Crack Cellar. As the prophecy was foretold, I'm Two-Spirit Penguin Daniel.
And I am the Father, the Holy Spirit, Broadcaster Nickels.
And today we talk about the spirit of Satan, aka Microsoft, acquiring Bethesda Software. Broadcaster Nickels, do you play a single game made by that company?
That is an outlandish statement. My lawyers are on the phone with Bethesda as we speak. The last game I played that I seriously liked by them, I think, was Fallout 3. New Vegas was really good, but I just never really had the time to play it too much. But everyone that did play it say it was amazing. So I'm sure I would have liked that one too. But I got my hands on Fallout 4, and I was like, nah. It was what it was. It was meh. And then 76 was just such a shit show. I didn't even have to touch it.
Yeah. I don't think many people touched that one. And the people that did touch it, they are the ones that felt touched in the end.
But the viewers out there might be saying, wow, Broadcaster, you're leaving out quite the glaring omission. And I will respond to that. I don't like Skyrim. I don't like Elder Scrolls that much, for that matter. And the fact that anyone even wants to use Skyrim in an argument at this point is just sad. Because how many times have they remastered that game and ported it? And not given you a new engine with any new game at all?
Yeah, it's funny. Whenever Skyrim comes up, I always instantly that Todd Howard meme just pops into my head. With him.
They're grifters, man.
This is Todd Howard after releasing the 19th remaster.
Everyone says like EA are like evil villains of the video game industry, which they are. But I don't know, man. When you look at it objectively, I think Bethesda gets the award because they have literally mastered the art of milking their shit.
Yeah.
Like mastered it. Like EA is probably envious on what Bethesda's gotten away with.
It's funny, I almost thought Bethesda was already an internal Microsoft studio just because I identify their games so closely to Xbox.
Yeah. I think most layman video gamers probably would think the same thing too, just because, for me at least, when I think of Bethesda, I think Fallout. And the biggest Fallout to me is Fallout 3. And what was I playing Fallout 3 on? An Xbox.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, in fact, I'm pretty sure Fallout 3 didn't come to PS3 initially. It was a timed exclusive on Xbox 360. So,
I
might be mistaken about that, but I want to think that's the truth.
Didn't Morrowind originally come out on Xbox 360 as well? I think that all their games start on Xbox or PC. I don't think any of them. They've never had a Sony exclusive.
Oblivion,
that's for sure.
I think Oblivion was on 360 and PS3, but Morrowind was, I think, exclusively on Xbox, wasn't it?
Something like that. I remember early on, it seemed like they were a Microsoft studio based off of
maybe PC
what was going
too.
Early on. But yeah. I've never been a fan of Bethesda. I don't like Dishonored. I don't like Elder Scrolls. I don't like Fallout. I don't even know what else they make, but I guarantee I'm not a player of whatever it is. And the only thing that really complicates this for me is Doom, because Bethesda owns id, I think, right?
ZeniMax owns id. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the same company that exactly. So they bought Doom as well as all this other crap. So I like Doom, and I would love to continue playing Doom. And now that Microsoft owns it, I wonder what's going to happen with Doom if they're going to do some timed exclusivity, if they're going to develop
I hope they don't, to be
Xbox
honest.
first and then PC as an afterthought. Like the Vulkan API support that came in the original 2016 Doom reboot was half of the genius of the game. And that was only because it was PC first. That's the only reason we got that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit more optimistic about it. For one, I think the era is I think this generation of consoles, the mindset of development with PC is changed. I think everyone kind of has a PC first mindset if it's ever going to be on the PC to begin with. Because you're seeing that especially with Microsoft. And now you're kind of seeing it with Sony with statements like, we're going to make all of our exclusives PC available too, which makes me think that the new standard is going to be, there's going to be console exclusives, but you also can get them on PC, but you'll never see them on the other console, at least maybe whether that's a timed exclusive or just a genuine exclusive. And to further that point, go to Microsoft a little bit. I've always been disappointed with Microsoft as a console company for quite some time, just because they're the American company, and I want, America to put up a good fight in this war. But it just seems like Microsoft failed generation after generation for me. And to see them finally, pull this move acquiring Bethesda and have some genuine fucking IP under their belt other than just Halo, for fucking Christ's sake, it makes it, I think it is a good thing. That's all I'm saying. Like if they can put out another top quality Doom with a fucking badass soundtrack, they need to work out whatever that fallout with Rick. What's that guy's name? The Aussie that made the soundtrack. It's Rick something, I'm pretty sure. But anyways, they need to work it out with him, and they need to pump out a third badass Doom. And if that was exclusive on Xbox, I'm all for it, because that makes the Xbox good. I'm for it. And if they put it on the PC, like I said earlier, I don't think there's such a thing as a true console exclusive anymore. I think there's just going to be it's only available on this console and PC type thing.
I hope you're right. But the thing I see right now is the opposite with these consoles, because they are now budget computers. So it's no longer like a Super Nintendo versus a Pentium 166 megahertz computer with 16 megabytes of RAM and a 56K modem. That's not what we're dealing with anymore. We're dealing with two identical machines, one with a stronger video card than the other. And when you're talking about these consoles, and Nintendo's not included. Obviously, Nintendo still does true consoles, and they're a totally different animal, totally different catalog of games. So I'm not even including them in the conversation. But when we're talking about Sony and we're talking about Microsoft, they know that they are just budget PCs. And if you are just a budget PC, and the entire world is on fire right now about the GTX 3080, and everyone and their fucking uncle is building a gaming computer, you have to be thinking about number one. How am I going to get people to buy my budget PC when they already have a better PC? How do you do that? Quite simple. Exclusives. True exclusives. And I think both of these guys, Microsoft and Sony, are both starting to realize that. And while I think the Xbox One and the PS4 era was very friendly to PC in terms of them sending their games our way, I think the pendulum's shifting right back the other direction. I think they're realizing it was a mistake and that it's giving up market share, and we'll see what happens. But I think we're going to have more true exclusives next gen than we did this gen.
I don't know, man. I mean, that's completely counter to what Microsoft is openly doing. And Sony, I mean, made the statement. I mean, it's an official statement. They're porting almost all their huge exclusives from the PS4 era over to PC as we speak.
Those are old games, though. We're talking
new. But in the statement, they said in there, I don't know if it's a translation thing, but in that statement, they pretty much alluded to the idea that this is a change of mindset for Sony going forward, that exclusives are going to be shared on PC more often now.
I think they're going to be shared when they're old.
I don't know. I think we're already going to get the Demon Souls remaster.
You think the Demon Souls remaster is coming out on PC, like immediately?
Maybe not. I don't know about immediately. Again, this is where the exclusive thing stays alive. I think there's going to be like timed releases still, and just keep away from the competitor console.
Well, when I'm saying timed release, I'm thinking generation. So, like, if let's say a generation,
you get a lot of flack for that.
I don't know.
Likes that anymore. People get a lot of shit just for exclusivity. Period. People call it industry killing when you hoard a game on a console or whatever. Period.
Yeah, it is, but it sells consoles. When you happen to strike it rich with the game, say you happen to get FF7.
Yep, for sure.
In 1998,
I'm absolutely
then you are buying a fucking PS1, aren't you?
Well, yeah, it plays hand in hand with what you said earlier. Like, I mean, I disagree a little bit, but what you said is pretty much 99% true. They're budget consoles. They're very similar. They're 99% the same. I mean, maybe you could argue that they're different, but at the end of the fucking journey, they do the exact same thing, right? It's like, so why have competitors? I mean, you got to let them have exclusives. Why even fucking have the market if you're not going to have a console that has something special to offer you? And if we're talking video game consoles, what is more special than the video game? Exactly. You think your user interface is going to be so dope that people are just going to be like, I'm going to be on Xbox forever? Don't get me wrong, though. Xbox, with Game Pass, it's changing it up.
Yeah, Microsoft's definitely on the upswing, and I feel like Sony is teetering on a downswing, but not quite there yet. But it feels like it's on the verge, like when you can smell rain in the air before a storm.
Yeah, I look at this upcoming generation with Microsoft and Sony as Sony being this titan that already knows he's about to win the fight, but he knows as this old man, like this is the last fight he's going to win with this tiny kid. One day he's going to be an adult. He's just going to whoop his ass. I feel like that's what's coming up here. I used to think that was Nintendo, but Nintendo is just like Master Roshi. On the island over there, just doing his own thing.
Well, I think overall, not really too concerned about the move. Don't really think it's that big of a deal because in my head they were already a Microsoft studio to begin with, so it's just kind of like, it doesn't really change much in my head. It's kind of weird.
Does change a lot for Microsoft though. There's a lot of exclusivity went with that deal.
Yeah, it seems like it's a chess move for sure, that they're getting their bishop positioned to take out the queen, but we will see.
Got them servers, you got the IPs. Who knows what next generation holds?
Well, and their hardware is already confirmed to be superior than the PS5s, which is quite an interesting shift compared to the previous generation, which was the literal opposite in terms of power. So,
is it really more powerful than the PS5?
Yeah, I think
they were
the specs I saw. No, the specs I saw was like anywhere from 15 to 35% performance increase on the Xbox compared to the PlayStation.
Wow! Don't they have the exact same GPU?
They have this. They have like the same brand GPU, and like I think
they have RDNA 2. They got the exclusive variants of RDNA 2 in them.
But the Xbox version's better. It's like the difference between a 3080 and a 3090. Xbox got the 3090.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. I don't understand it. I don't know if they made a deal with AMD, but if they did, then why would Sony keep the deal with AMD? If they're like, the whole thing is weird.
Doesn't Sony have some fancy pants SSD cache technology they're trying to tout?
I think both of them have their own version of it that they're trying to tout. That's like the big, oh, this is the new feature of this generation of consoles, SSDs, and all the PC people are like, oh, cool. 2011 was a good year.
Man, if there's one thing that's ever been apparent with console games is loading. Mm-hmm. So if they can drive up the SSD usage in consoles, I'm for it.
Yeah. More HDDs. Yeah, this new generation of consoles to console-only people that don't play PCs, they're going to feel like a magical leap forward compared to the last gen. And it's kind of comical if you're a PC person looking at it, just like, you have no
I've never had an SSD in a console. Can you even put an SSD currently in a PS4?
You can, yeah, you can.
Okay.
I thought about it, but I was like, I'll just go ahead and wait that one out because I don't play my consoles enough to justify it.
Yeah.
Well, Broadcaster Nickels, on that note, are you ready to get to a exclusive of Sony in our preview of FF16?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
What's that? You want more Crack Cellar? This is good. Join your lords on Twitter at The Crack Cellar and Facebook.com/The Crack Cellar.
Hey, you over there. Are you a straight-up Chad or a strong woman? Well, you can find us on Apple Podcasts and your favorite podcasting app. Or, if you're a straight-up beta cuck, find us on YouTube with the rest of the Cloud Chasers. And we're back with our preview of Final Fantasy XVI. Broadcaster Nickels, the time has come. Once again, we are greeted with a perennial video game that you pray won't disappoint you.
Hold on, cut. Two-Spirit Penguin. A regular, traditional Final Fantasy intro would be, our Mother Crystal has called out to us once again. All right. So from the beginning, you will worship her. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, and that's the first thing that stands out when you watch the trailer. It's the return of the crystals. We're back to square one with Final Fantasy. We're in a medieval setting. I wonder where
they got that idea from.
We're in a medieval setting for the first time since the PS2, which is batshit crazy to me that we haven't had a mainline Final Fantasy in a medieval setting since the PS2. How?
That's not true. I mean, Final Fantasy 14 is that? Or are you just talking about number, like traditional?
First of all, Final Fantasy 14 is not medieval.
It's not medieval, but it's like, fantasy, traditional type fantasy-esque type,
There's lots of technology in Final Fantasy 14, but also It's an MMORPG, so I wasn't counting that.
But you wouldn't compare it to like Final Fantasy X, completely different aesthetic, Like I always think about like the traditional Final Fantasies as like these weird pocket like stories. Well, at least anything post 6, like 7 and above.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. We're back kind of where we began with Final Fantasy. They've gotten rid of the futuristic, bright, techno RPG vibes that we've been getting for so long, and we're back to like Game of Thrones style, like old school kings and castles, and I love it. I'm glad. I didn't even realize it till I watched the trailer, but I was like, you know what? I am sick of little bubble futuristic cities and blitzball and fucking lightning.
Don't you bring
trains.
up blitzball? We got it one time, all right, and it was awesome. How dare you spit upon its name?
But one thing you might have noticed in this trailer, if you are an FF14 player, as you just mentioned, is that the summons are reused assets from FF14. Ifrit, Phoenix, Shiva, all 3 of those are straight out of FF14 with almost no alterations.
You also didn't notice, not the main character. Well, we don't know who the main character is, but one of the main characters in the movie clip or the trailer that black-haired guy with the tattoo on his face.
Yeah.
Doesn't he oddly look like the stock hero of light from 14?
Mm-hmm. Well, they call him the Warrior of Darkness now, but yeah. He does.
Yeah. Sorry, spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Sorry.
I was trying to keep it down, on the DL.
But yeah, you are right, and I do believe he is the main character. I get that impression because when you see every battle in this trailer, it's interesting. It's the same character. It's only one character. If you were to really not know this was a Final Fantasy game and you just looked at it blind, you might think this is like a Dark Souls-y type game because it looks very actiony. It's always one character going up against one boss looking thing. It's interesting, man. I clearly this is the FF15 engine that we're dealing with here. You can just feel it, and even in the trailer.
You think so?
Yeah, it is.
I can tell. Look like it though.
I think they've upgraded it significantly, and they've changed the graphics so much that it just kind of throws you off because you're.
I thought the graphics looked worse.
I don't think so.
Than 50 compared to 15.
Oh, I don't think so. No.
Wow.
Maybe it's just like
that was the first thing I noticed.
A preference of the eye thing because they're two so different art styles. So maybe it's just something with that.
I just thought like pixel wise, I was like this. I almost thought it was good. I honestly, when I first saw it, I thought it was an expansion to Final Fantasy 14. When I first saw it, I was like, oh, are they relaunching 14 on the consoles on PS5 and this is going to be a huge expansion push or something? And then it turned into 16 and but the funny thing about it is that no matter what, you get strong 14 vibes from 16 in the art style. Well, not exactly in the art style, but just the characters, the summons, and the fact that it's not a techno Final Fantasy. Yeah. It's not Final Fantasy 15.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is what I'll say before we move on to what you're talking about, which I agree with you. And the battle system, the reason I can tell this is the FF15 engine is quite simple. You can clearly see in these battles him using the King's Glaive teleport shit. It has a new graphics effect on it, but he's doing it, and it looks the exact same, and it performs the exact same. There's no way that they did a new engine and then built that shit right back into the new engine, perfectly emulating the old one. I don't buy that.
Well, it could be a brought over mechanic. They might believe in it. It was one of the cool things about Final Fantasy 15. I mean,
that's the thing.
Possible they just didn't want to leave it hanging on the vine.
You don't build a new engine just to put your old engine into the new engine, and that's what that would be doing.
Yeah, it just really worries me though. I don't want to believe it's the same engine, or at least it's not. It's drastically overhauled version of the engine because 15's limitations were just so glaring. And it really ultimately was off-putting for me. Yeah.
Well, they might have figured out how to make it work because I thought that the battle system was okay, but it just kind of wasn't executed well in FF15. So far, what I'm seeing in FF16 is interesting because, first of all, it looks like all the things that we're seeing are boss fights. I don't know if that was intentional and they're just leaving out the trash fights, or if perhaps there are only boss fights in this game and that the other trash encounters are done differently, maybe with a different type of system. And that, what we are seeing is like an exclusive boss fight mode. Also, there were no party members. Like I said, it's just one guy, the main character, in all of these fights. And we saw 5 different boss fights in this trailer, and every single one did not include a party member.
Well, we saw what we would normally perceive as boss fights in Final Fantasy. Again, going back to your Dark Souls idea, like any fight in a Dark Souls lens towards Final Fantasy would make fights all look like boss fights.
True.
So
it's intriguing though. Perhaps this no party member thing is one of the ways they get the FF15 battle system to work better, because I always thought that the party members were hokey in FF15.
they would definitely were.
Yeah, so
Felt like an
eliminating
afterthought.
eliminating them might actually be one of the things that sets the system free, so to speak. So we'll see. It's something to note, because while it looks close to FF15 in fundamental ways, the way it presents that is way different based in this trailer.
Yeah. I don't know. I immediately got like pre Final Fantasy 13 vibes from this game. That's what I got. Like, as soon as I saw the graphics and I saw the storyline and I saw that it was actually a numbered Final Fantasy that was going to be on the consoles, I immediately was like, whoa. The butterflies in my stomach started going off, and I was like, this feels like a Final Fantasy that I'd be told about before I ever knew about FF13.
Yeah.
Before I thought the fate of the franchise was doomed.
Yes. And it feels very much in line with the Ivalice type.
It feels
Final
like 12
Fantasies.
almost, doesn't it? Like
feels
almost
like,
an FF12.
Or
desk.
Final Fantasy Tactics, yeah. Like, it feels like that sort of Final Fantasy, which is interesting, because that's not what they've been lately. And it makes you wonder if there was a power struggle at Square.
I think there definitely was a shakeup at Square. Dude, they were just squandering the franchise.
Mm-hmm.
It was so bad. Like, after 13, I remember so long ago, man, when Final Fantasy 13 came out, and I was like, man, this just feels weird. It's like someone just took over there,
Mm-hmm.
And then what did we get right after that? The first direct sequel. Well, technically 10-2 was the first direct sequel, but like, everyone knows that was kind of like a prototype to one of the best Final Fantasies ever. Final Fantasy 13 was not well received, and then they were like, guess what the next Final Fantasy is? A direct sequel to 13. And no one was happy. And then I guess what the next Final Fantasy after that is? It's a 3-parter. Yeah.
It makes sense why they wanted to do it. It saves them so much money. You have no idea how many assets they reused in that trilogy. Did you play all 3 of the FF13 games?
God, no.
Okay, I did. And
I only played the third one.
Dude, the second one was actually way better than the third one. The third one was really bad. The second one had like some Chrono Trigger vibes to it. But like 90%, and I'm not exaggerating, 90% of the graphics assets were reused from the original FF13
Oh,
and FF13 2. It might as well just been an expansion pack.
Listen, we all can agree that our souls never died more than on that fateful night than we returned to the Thunder Plains in X2 and put on a concert for the people.
FF10 had some really killer music.
Yeah. I think 10 and 7, and I'd say, man, 3, 4, 6, 7, 10, something was special about those ones I just mentioned. Those are like the big ones out there for me. Every time I think of Final Fantasy, I think of those ones. Their worlds were just so much more than any of the others.
Yeah. You can find someone that thinks every Final Fantasy is the best Final Fantasy. I've met some fools that say Mystic Quest is the best Final Fantasy. I've met these people. They exist.
Those people are trolls, and they're just trying to get something out of you, bro. No one out there is genuinely defending Mystic Quest.
Oh, dude, they do, man. I know their arguments. And guess what? One of their arguments is that the music. They think that
my wife left me in 85, and Mystic Quest saved me. Is that their argument?
Yeah, no, I'm not a fan of Mystic Quest, but it's just Final Fantasy is one of those series where almost every single title, someone will give you a good argument why it's the best out of the 25 that exist. And they're pretty... How many franchises can say that? Very few. Most franchises have quite a few stinkers that nobody likes.
Oh, for sure. And way less titles to pick from.
Yeah.
That's the other part no one wants to talk about. Final Fantasy, shit talking aside, is probably the most consistent franchise in gaming history. I mean, if you really think about it, if you look at sheer volume, because if you don't consider spin-offs
or sports games,
we're up to 16 Final Fantasies. And how many could you genuinely say of those 16 are just avoid them at all costs?
Yeah,
I don't think any of them really.
Yep.
Some of them are bad. Don't get me wrong; they're not good. But it's like, would you avoid them at all costs? No. I'd tell you to play those over a lot more other RPGs I can think of.
Yeah, definitely. We were talking earlier about the FF14 assets being reused in FF16. I have heard credible rumors that one Yoshi P is the shadow director of FF16. And that he has amazing influence on this title. And that
I'm looking for my big Hollywood sunglasses. Go on.
And that is one of the reasons why we're seeing these really close parallels to FF14 so early on. Like you identified the main character really quick. I identified the summons instantly. If you go over the trailer more, I'm sure there are other breadcrumbs that you'll probably find. One thing I noticed, and I think you probably subliminally noticed it, but didn't quite want to put a finger on it because you were so focused on the main character. I think the art style, period, is straight up FF14.
Yep.
They show all these characters. They show close-ups on their faces and moving their lips, dialogue, all that stuff. I have played thousands of hours of Final Fantasy XIV. I have seen every cutscene in that goddamn game. So many cutscenes in FF14. I was instantly reminded of the art style when watching this trailer, watching these people talk in this trailer. It looks the exact fucking same as watching an FF14 trailer with maybe slightly upgraded graphics, but not much.
Yeah. No doubt. And the themes are just too many reoccurring themes are happening. The fact that the Mother Crystal Hyden is there. Hydaelyn is just like immediately in the first trailer. Mm-hmm. The summons being out of control. If anybody played A Realm Reborn, they'll notice some themes immediately. It's just, and then the fact that the art style is the same. One of the main characters is just pretty much there in the trailer. So,
yeah, and based on that logo, did you take a look at the logo artwork very closely?
No, not really.
It's literally Ifrit and Phoenix fighting each other. So,
Ifrit and Phoenix?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So my guess is that this entire storyline is going to revolve around like a celestial godlike feud between Ifrit and Phoenix, two fire summons, which I find really interesting. I like the fact that they're the same element. It makes me think, oh, these dudes are like, yo, dog, Phoenix over there said that he's the strongest fire summon. And Ifrit's like, bro, I started fire summoning, brah. Okay, I am the OG. And it's like a fucking, it's like 8 Mile with Eminem stepping up. What do you think about that?
I mean, that's a story that Final Fantasy Universe deserves, but probably won't get. I mean, it'd be pretty cool.
Also,
I want to know if there's going to be summoners, though. Are they going to go through this like primal route where it's like these just unmovable entities that come from the power of the crystals, or are these like evil people that are like unleashing these summons on the lands? Because I've always liked the idea of the evil summoner. When Final Fantasy X rolled around and like you had to go on the pilgrimage and shit like that, and all this stuff. I was like, man, it'd be really cool if they played around with this idea, but it was like master class summoner, and it was evil as fuck.
Yeah.
And it caused a cataclysm event.
Yeah, one of my favorite parts about FF10 was the fact that it was good summoner versus evil summoner, and when you see Seymour summon Animus the first time, you're just like, you see that like coming out of hell with the head, and just like, that was really fucking cool, and it was new. Like all the past Final Fantasy villains, you had Kefka poisoning villages, you had Sephiroth impaling young maidens. Like you didn't have a evil summoner who was like the rival of the good summoner, who was like kind of the main character, but not quite. It was a really interesting dynamic. I like that.
Yeah, it's more of a traditional fantasy trope, you know, the rivalry, if you will.
Yeah, and I did notice from this trailer that I think I have the answer for you, and the answer is yes.
You think it is evil summoners?
I think Ifrit, whoever... Okay, so let me take a step back. In this trailer, they talk about dominance. The trailer opens with these medieval Game of Thrones looking dudes are about to go on a mission being like, the target is Shiva's dominant and only the dominant. And then like one of the soldiers is like, but what if the girl isn't there? They're basically framing this like Naruto. I believe that these summons are basically like the tailed beasts from Naruto, and that they're sealed within people. Because after they talk about this dominant, later on we get to the part where we see Phoenix come out of the kid Joshua. And it looks looks just like fucking Ninetales escaping Naruto.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is cool. I like that. And I think because we can pretty much rest assured that Joshua's a good guy based off of what I was seeing in this trailer. He has Phoenix. I believe that makes Ifrit the villain in this Celestial feud, and whoever the dominant of Ifrit is, who I believe is that fire-cloaked figure you see with red eyes where the dude's on the ground, he's like, what? Impossible.
Yeah.
I think that is the dominant of Ifrit, and it's probably the main villain of the game, and probably an evil summoner, so to speak, at least.
That's interesting. Takes 16 Final Fantasies to make Ifrit the fucking villain.
It was such a natural choice, and it took so fucking long. But I know you're happy about the return of the Dragoon, just featured real early in that trailer. Just
You're damn right.
Just to make sure you people don't forget, this game's about Dragoons and only Dragoons.
Number one in the hood, G. He was the original hero, all right? People tend to want to forget about Dragoons, all right? Maybe they've played Titan Extreme too many times.
Wait, is that a mount that dropped? Every Dragoon rolls 99.
I think I'm retiring, guys. I'm not going to play anymore.
You literally won the mount before your body was resurrected from the ground.
It's tradition.
But
this is the way.
But speaking of Joshua, why the fuck was he being voice acted by a 45-year-old cigarette smoking ex-military quadroon? Like, what the fuck was that, dude?
I do not know. It was very jarring. He wasn't the only voice actor that was jarring, though. The king's voice, I don't know if you go back in the trailer, the voice for the king that was sitting in the castle, he didn't have a voice matching him either. He was like super young sounding.
Oh, like the guy who was whiny, he's like, "Didn't you swear your sword to me?" Or
yeah,
yeah, I did notice that. I think really what this trailer is really assured is that I'm going to be switching it to Japanese audio. I'm not impressed with the voice acting so far in the dub.
I think Americans just gave up on seriously dubbing Japanese voices. I think it's over.
Yeah.
No one respects the trade anymore.
So supposedly this is a PS5 exclusive. Do you believe that?
Yeah.
So you think it's not coming out on PS4? You don't think it's coming out on PC?
I definitely don't think it's coming out on PS4. because I don't think it's a launch title. If it was a launch title, I'd say sure, it's coming out on PS4. But I don't think it's a launch title because that was the only game that was in the during the Sony reveal that they said was running on PC.
Right.
It's the only one.
And it's not a launch title.
Yeah.
But there was an interview with someone big on the dev team. I forget which developer it was, but someone was interviewed by, I think, Famitsu. And they said that the game is coming out much sooner than people think it is.
Really?
I don't know if that's trolling or what, but I just kind of get the feeling that this is going to be not a launch game, but it's going to be like one of those soft launch games, like that comes out 3 months after launch or like 5 months after launch. I don't think it's going to be far off. I really don't. I think we're going to have FF16 before summer 2021. That's my guess.
Man, that'd be really cool if they can connect it to Final Fantasy 14 then. Maybe in a way it could be like the end of Final Fantasy 14's story.
Oh, that would be so cool. I would be so all about that.
Like,
and maybe Yoshi
Fantasy,
P being involved the way he is, maybe that's the breadcrumb.
Maybe it's like a reboot 10,000 years after the story of 14. You know, like it gives you like a definitive ending of what happens in the 14 storyline.
It would really make a lot of sense why the art style is so similar. That's for sure.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
It would be, but because it'd be so cool, it probably won't happen. But we'll keep our fingers crossed here in the Crack Cellar.
You can pay me now for my ideas. Hit me up. I got Twitter. I got Facebook.
Yeah, but overall, I just was really happy about like the gloominess of this trailer. Every scene was dark. Almost all of it took place at night. It was foggy. True. It was gloomy and moody. You know what I'm saying? Like when you've been playing games like FF15,
reminded me of a compelling game like Legend of Dragoon that we both love so much.
I knew you were gonna do that. Moving on
to Legend of Dragoon 2.
to our review of Legend of Dragoon for PS1. Well, before we wrap this preview up, there is one thing I want to point out that I'm not sure if you noticed or not, but I think it has really strong implications for the story structure of this game. The main character, or the person I believe is the main character, and I think the person you believe is the main character, the guy that looks like the Warrior of Darkness from FF14. At the end of this trailer, it does like a close-up zoom on his face as the young, 22-year-old rookie soldier. Then it does like a fade cut into an older, grizzled version of himself that looks, I don't know, like 10, 15 years older.
Yep.
I think we have a time skip on our hands. I think that half of this game is going to be in one time period. Something big is going to go down, and we are going to be time skipping at least a decade. What do you think?
Yep, exactly. Warrior of Darkness seals all the summons into hosts, and then reboots the universe. So remembering it.
You were Ifrit all along. The end.
We're all Ifrit. Lock hands.
Oh, shit.
At the barrel of a gun.
But on that note, Broadcaster Nickels, do you give Final Fantasy XVI a thumbs up, a thumbs down, or the dreaded side thumb?
I'll give it the righteous upper thumb.
I'll take that under advisement. Indeed. Thumbs up from me as well. Quite simply, one of the best trailers I've seen in a long time. And the game looks legit, and Yoshi P is pulling the puppet strings, so all is well in Squareland. Broadcaster Nickels, are you ready to move on to our review of Rick and Morty Season 4?
Where am I?
And we're back with our review of Justin Roiland's Rick and Morty, Season 4, and the creators of this TV series describe it as the following. The series follows the misadventures of alcoholic scientist Rick and his overly nervous grandson Morty, who split their time between domestic family life and intergalactic travel, often finding themselves in a heap of trouble that more often than not, created through their own actions. These two will get to themselves out of trouble in the most entertaining way. Broadcaster Nickels, this is quite an interesting season because it veered off a bit from the earlier ones. Originally, I think Rick and Morty parodied sort of esoteric concepts, tropes, if you will, but not specific works. This season, Season 4, felt the majority of the episodes were actually parodying real fictional works that have been done in the past.
Yeah, I mean, they have a mythos to go off of now, though. So, now you can see like Birdman and his girlfriend and other things like that get brought back up from other seasons. You're like, oh, I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have any of that to go off of in 1 and 2. 3, I guess they could have done that, but they didn't.
It's just, like, if you look at the episode title of each episode, and the titles are all like parody titles of movies. The Edge of Tomorrow, the fucking Tom Cruise sci-fi from like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, the first episode of Season 4, literally the title of it is a parody titling of The Edge of Tomorrow.
We definitely feel the new writers in the room, right?
Yeah, and that trend continues through most of the season.
Oh yeah, Rattlestar Rictacula.
Yeah, exactly. Like it felt like a very fundamental shift in the way they approach the show. And do you think that means they sold out? Because I heard a lot of talk about them selling out. Do you think that when they say Rick and Morty sells out, are they talking about like the way they're shifting to just like actually being a parody of specific works rather than concepts?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you look at it this way, they hired a bunch of writers. Now they're leaning on more tropes, and they have a contract for like 7 more seasons or something like that. So you can see how they're going to pump out those seasons fast.
Mm-hmm.
You can just see it right now.
Oh, I forgot about that. You're right. Last year they announced, hey everyone, you wanted a 4th season of Rick and Morty? How about 10? That was so weird.
Dude,
I forgot.
Dude, I still think back to the first pilot episode of Rick and Morty and how it ended. When Morty's just sitting there on the ground just because the serum wore off and his legs rebroke, and he's like, oh, he's in a bunch of pain. And Rick's just like, you first find out how fucked up Rick is. He's like, I'm sorry, Morty. I lied to you. You're going to be in pain for the next 3 or 72 hours. But it's okay, because me and you, we're going to have so many more adventures. It's going to be Rick and Morty forever and ever. RickandMorty.com. Rick and Morty. And I think about that. I was like, well, he finally got what he wanted. 7 more seasons, Morty. 7 more.
Yeah. And they did clear out their writer's room and hire like 80%-ish brand new writing staff. There's a few holdovers, but not many. So I think you might be right. These new writers might be the ones we're stuck with for the very long-term future, which...
Well, I think it'll be a rotation.
You think so?
For sure. I mean, every single episode's written by somebody different. I mean, looks like... I think Jeff Loveless is like a Loveness. I forget his last name, but he seems to be a reoccurring guy. He did like 4 episodes or something like that. But I don't know. I could easily see them getting rotated out.
Well, perhaps because season 4's ratings fell off a cliff after the premiere. They started really high with the first episode of season 4, and they dropped by like 60% and then stayed that low all the rest of the way through, which is a huge dip for the show. before this, the show was continuously going up in viewership all the way up to the season 4 premiere, and then it just
yeah, it kind of lost its like special sauce that you got from the first couple seasons.
Yeah, it's definitely just it feels like it went Hollywood, and all the celebrity cameos really cement that impression. Every episode just about has notable celebrity cameos, and one of them has like 5. You're just like, what is happening in this fucking episode? There's 5 random celebrities.
Well, that's the thing about it. Rick and Morty is the next Simpsons, you know. It's like how Futurama went down, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna have what's his name, Willie Nelson voicing a character eventually. That's just where Rick and Morty is going to be at some point.
Yeah, and
probably gonna see Justin Bieber in an episode. Is he even relevant anymore? I don't know.
Last time I heard anything about him, he was just driving a Lamborghini in Florida at like 200 miles per hour, and he went to jail or something. That was the last thing I heard about him.
Good for Justin.
Yeah.
Sounds like a God-fearing American.
Overall thoughts on season 4 without going into like too specific of spoilers, because we talked about the ratings falling off. So based on that, you can tell most people weren't super impressed with season 4. Do you think maybe they embraced the memes a little too hard in this season? Like they read their own press? And because, you know, Rick and Morty is a very meme-y comedy cartoon show, and it's all about the memes, and on it. The fan base of Rick and Morty is all about the memes. That's what I'm really trying to say. And I feel like the writers and the creative staff on Rick and Morty fell in the trap of like going into the same places their fan base goes, and like, oh, this will be good because this is what this Reddit forum said.
Yeah, for sure. And that's definitely how Rick and Morty fans think.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go to Reddit and see how people think and react. On top of that, the writers are fans. You know, at this point, like this giant influx of writers, you can't not imagine that these people are fans of the series, and you know they're going to be biased in that regard.
Yeah,
they're gonna favor certain characters. They're gonna want to like do certain stories that they've always thought should have happened. You know, it automatically skews the nature of the original narrative. You know,
yeah, and one of the new writers is a really big fan of Summer, and I'm not sure exactly what kind of fan he is of Summer, but he's definitely a fan of some type.
Yeah, I got some really weird vibes from that character the whole fucking season.
Yeah, Summer,
such a character change. So weird.
She is involved in some of the most depraved scenes in this entire season. She says some of the most depraved shit in this entire season. And there's, like you said, there's some really weird vibes going on with Summer in certain aspects. And I don't want to go full Game of Thrones Cersei Lannister here, but this might be a Cersei situation, if you know what I mean.
I'm definitely thinking there's going to be a future where there's going to be some Summer and Morty babies.
Season 5, take as long as you want. We're good.
I mean, there was just this joke where it was just like, if you eat me, don't start at my ass, because that would just be awkward or something like that. And it was like, was that an eating your sister's ass joke? What the fuck? What is going on?
Yeah, there are a few lines that you just... There was one, oh my God, when I heard it, I just was like, was that just allowed to exist in America? Like that made it past just like Uncle Sam sitting up in the clouds smiting the bad shit. Uncle Sam missed that one, and this was allowed past the censors.
Daniel, I know you're getting a little long in the tooth. You know, you're a little old now at the year 35. But if you grace Pornhub, there is a genre that's been growing very, very fast, and it's not good. And it's incest.
Well, that's very
There's
true.
a lot of people out there that want to fuck their step sibling, apparently.
That's very true. And Morty and Summer are definitely full-blooded siblings. So
Nah, dude, they're both androids.
they're clone androids of other androids that were also clones. Yes, I forgot about that.
At
That
this
makes
point,
it
can
all
they even be
better.
related?
I mean, they're stupid not to make babies at this point, right?
Here at the Crack Cellar, we just gave you a glimpse into the mind of these fucked up writers.
That's not even what I'm talking about. There's something way worse than the incest. But again, I'm going to save it for the spoiler section. And just kind of say that this season is much more hit and miss than past seasons. Seasons 1 through 3 are much more solid all around. Season 4 has a few standout episodes, but there are also some stinkers. And you're not used to having stinkers in Rick and Morty.
Yeah, I'd say almost a third of the season sucked, like completely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would put it right about that as well. Maybe a quarter to a third. Definitely right in that area. There are several episodes that were not good. But the writing staff that we alluded to that is really obsessed with Pornhub's newest sensation in the categorization hub, they really wanted to amplify certain things. And what they did is that they took Rick and Morty and they just took imagine there are a bunch of sliders that you can just up the percentage of. And they're like, oh, gore, up it to 200%. Gross, weird shit, just ambiguously make you disturbed type stuff. Not funny, just gross and weird. Take that up to 200. Funny? Let's bring that back down to like 75. That's sort of how the season felt. Like, it was all about making the viewer uncomfortable. That's the impression I got, is that these writers just wanted to make the Rick and Morty viewers feel uncomfortable. And they know how sick and depraved Rick and Morty viewers are to begin with. So that tells you how far they went to make this happen.
You know why? Because Rick and Morty fans are privileged. And they need to show them how privileged they are. Need to step outside of their comfort zone.
Yep.
Need more diverse cast of writers and jokes and ideas, like fucking your sister or brother.
One last thing I want to say before we start moving on to our spoiler section is notably Justin Roiland and Dan Harmon did not write a single episode of this season. In the past 3 seasons, they did write several episodes each season. This one, zilch, nada. And that's in addition to an overall brand new writing staff, essentially, on top of it. So season 4 is almost a brand new show.
Yeah, well, I think Roiland and Harmon don't like each other. I think they fucking hate each other, to be honest.
Yeah, I get that impression too. I think Dan Harmon sort of has gotten kicked out. And I don't really think he's very much involved in the show beyond contractual obligations in the voice acting department. What do you think?
I mean, I don't know. Probably it's more than that, just because they'd write off Birdman a long time ago.
Maybe they just did. Dun, dun, dun.
I mean, Birdman was already written off. They actually brought him back.
I know. Yeah, it's you can't really write anyone off in a show like this because it doesn't really follow.
Yeah.
There's an entire episode about the fact that the show does not follow a continuity, which is one of the better episodes of the season. But overall, Broadcaster Nickels, would you recommend season 4 of Rick and Morty to someone that maybe is on the fence?
Run. Don't open this box. It's not worth it. Once you have the ability to... All right, never mind. I should step back. Once you give Rick and Morty fans the ability to talk to you about Rick and Morty, it's game over. That's endgame. You've lost. All right? So don't give them that ability. when a Rick and Morty fan comes up and they fervently say, "Dude, love a dub dub dub," or "Pickle Rick," and you say, "What?" And they say, "You've never seen Rick and Morty?" And you say, "No."
No.
Be proud.
Yeah, I'm sure that Reddit loves this season of Rick and Morty, but as an original fan of Rick and Morty, who is not just a meme kid that just appreciated it in the way that any red-blooded American appreciates a hard R cartoon meant for adults, I really, really love the first 2 seasons of Rick and Morty. I like the 3rd season a lot. The 4th season is not as good as any of the original 3 seasons. Anyone who tells you otherwise is just, more than likely, they are of a certain variety of Redditor, and I'm going to go ahead and tell you to ignore them. But at the same time, if you've been watching Rick and Morty, you have to watch season 4. It's still good. It's still decent. You're going to watch it. But if I were like talking to someone who's never watched Rick and Morty before, I might give pause to recommending the show in general to them at this point. That's where my hesitation might come in. I'm not sure I want to get any newcomers involved in this shit show that we're about to review, but what say you, Broadcaster Nickels?
I gave it a thumbs down.
There is no thumb. There's only Thule.
I got a fat thumb. Sup, ladies?
On that note, Broadcaster Nickels, are you ready to get to our spoiler section?
Hold on. I'm playing Thumb War with myself. Action.
Broadcaster Nickels, the first episode comes to us with many tropes. First of all, was that not the most timely reference to Nancy Grace you've ever seen?
Man, no one really knows who Nancy Grace is anymore, do they?
No, they don't. It was so weird to see her in that. I was just like, wait a second. You guys are memeing Nancy Grace like 10 years after she was relevant? Like, are you trying to bring her back? Are you her agent?
I think she still does something, right, on one of those fringe channels. Fringe news channels.
If she does, it's news to me. I don't think so, but it's possible.
Man. How'd she get famous? OJ? Aruba? She got famous for Aruba, didn't she?
She got famous for being a high-profile Karen on television. That's basically.
She was, dude. She was OG news Karen, for sure.
She was. She was one of those, like, but what about the children people? Like, I remember a lot of her rants were based on the children, quote unquote.
I think the universe gave us Nancy Grace for humanity to be able to visually identify what a bitch looks like. You know, like, they're like, no one could put a finger on it before Nancy came into existence, you know? And you're like, that's what a bitch looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, so the first episode starts out a little grandiose, you know. They're trying to take a crystal, you know, and the crystal ends up like taking over.
Real original theme.
Taking over Morty. It was the first vision of Nazis we see in this season, but not the last. What do you think about the use of Nazis in this episode?
I'm absolutely for it. I think humanity, especially white people, have a price to pay for our privilege. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
I do. And
Hitler. Go on.
This episode felt really disconnected from Rick and Morty. It didn't feel like a Rick and Morty episode. It also has one of the most disturbing scenes I've ever seen in my entire life in it. So basically,
the wasp.
So basically what happens here is that Rick dies and he keeps resurrecting over and over and coming out of his little hatch in the basement from his, cloning area. And each time he comes back, he's like a different version. And at first we have the Nazi version, and we have Nazi Rick, and we have fascist Morty, and eventually we get to the wasps, right? Like, I think there's like a slug version too. There's some weird random alien stuff, but the wasp version, dude,
it was pretty disturbing.
that was some sinister shit. That was disturbing on a level you don't typically see in a show like Rick and Morty. So basically, Rick is like, "Hey, dude, I just want to get out of here. I'll say whatever you want me to say. Are you a Nazi? I'll be a Nazi." He's like, "Oh no, I fucking hate the wasp." Rick is like, "Fuck no, I hate Nazis." He's like, "Oh, thank God. Okay. What do wasps do?" And he's like, "Well, wasps eat their food alive while they cry, and if they don't do that, they insert babies into their eyes so that the babies can eat the brains from the inside." And you're just like, well, that's pretty grim, but okay, he's just saying some stuff. He's just talking shit, whatever. And it gets to the point where he's like, "Okay, that's fine." And then, Wasp Rick's like, "Okay, come eat dinner with my family, break bread, everything will be okay." And we get to this scene. It's the entire family, but wasps, with Morty's teacher as a caterpillar on the dinner table. They're just viciously eating this teacher alive while they like have family banter, and you actually see Summer do the eyeball impregnation thing while they're all eating too. And this is disturbing by itself, but towards the end of it, like the portrayal of the caterpillar, the teacher, the way he's voice acting it is so like you can just hear like the genuine horror in his voice. It's like that was some good acting. Whoever that guy is who does that, he has some good acting. And at one point, you find out that the caterpillar teacher's pregnant. And the babies pop out, and he's just like, "Run, little babies, run!" And then fucking Wasp Morty's like, "Ooh, bonus," and he just fucking slurps the babies up. Words do not describe how fucked up and disturbing this scene was. I've seen some shit in my life, and this is gonna stick with me for a long time.
It's definitely one of the better episodes. I liked it, especially when he like comes to was it a teddy bear or whatever it was? What was it? Was it stuffed animals, or was it a lobster or something like that? I forget. He runs into one universe where it's like he can't quite figure out if it's a fascist or they're anti-fascist or fascist, and he's like, he's like, "Yeah, fuck Hitler," and he's just like, "We love Hitler here." He's like, "Ah, son of a bitch." It just blows his brains out. I don't know. I thought it was pretty funny. Yeah,
that was pretty funny. Yeah, this was definitely one of the funnier episodes. It didn't really feel like a Rick and Morty episode, but it had a lot of laughs in it for sure. But it also had some really disturbing shit. And I'm going to say that the Wasp Rick dinner wasn't even the most disturbing thing in the episode, Broadcaster Nickels. What would you say? What do you say to that? Do you have any idea what I'm talking about right now? If you were to guess what I'm about to say is the most disturbing thing in the episode.
I mean, it's been a while since I watched that episode. What are we talking about?
Okay. Broadcaster Nickels, at the end of this episode, Rick and Morty and Summer are in front of the garage, and they're like babbling at each other. While Rick and Morty are basically fighting each other to like get a word in edgewise, Summer's also screaming to try and become a part of the group.
Oh. And
at the end of it, you hear her say something about a cum fest. And then they both look at her and they're like, what the fuck did you just say, bitch? And at first you just think that she's like fantasizing about getting gangbanged or something, which is, kind of like, it's kind of R-rated, but like, whatever, it's Rick and Morty. But then Rick is like, hey, I record everything, cunt. We're going to fucking listen to this shit. And he plays it back. And she starts talking about third graders blowing each other and having a cum fest. Kids. What the fuck? How is it possible that that's even allowed to air in America? You're allowed to talk about something like that.
There's a lot of pedos out there in the entertainment world.
Righto, but holy shit, was that... When I heard that shit, I could not believe what I heard. I'm just like, did someone edit this to troll me? Did this really air on television?
Yeah, it's a little weird.
It did air on television.
I think it's the prime example of how the writing has changed in the series, It's like because jokes just don't land like that in regular Rick and Morty, You just don't. Sure, it's out. You brought it up to an outlandish level, but that was just weird.
Yeah. I couldn't believe it. And they ended the episode on it too. Like, that's literally the last fucking thing that happens in the episode. They leave you on that note. And it's like, okay, on one hand, Rick and Morty just threw the gauntlet down on inappropriateness, but at what cost?
Yeah, weird sexuality is a reoccurring theme in this season.
It is. Thankfully, pedophilia isn't a reoccurring theme. I think this is the only time, I want to say this is the only time something like that is said or happens, but other sexual perversions are fucking in every single episode the rest of the way.
Yeah, well, all you gotta do is look up the guy that wrote the episode and look at the picture of him and tell me that he doesn't diddle little kids. Tell me he doesn't. Look up Mike McMahon.
Jesus Christ. The second episode is a meme episode about app developers, and it has like a little alien that's just constantly walking around the house like, oh, will you develop my app? And everyone's like, no, shut up. And of course, Jerry's like, oh, perhaps I will develop your app.
This one was pretty funny.
This episode was like personified the overall theme of season 4, which is every episode is like either a parody or a meme. There's no just straight up episode that is its, well, maybe there's one, but most of them, they're just a parody or a meme. And as someone that is in the IT sector, the whole app developer meme cracked me the fuck up. I enjoyed it, but I really didn't truly enjoy it till we got up to the Death Star and were greeted by Sam Neill playing Palpatine. That was fucking awesome, wasn't it?
It was fucking amazing, dude.
The pepper he was putting on that voice acting performance, like he was literally trying to be Palpatine in his own voice. He was trying to do it. It was so good.
What was his name?
Oh God, what was his fucking name? It was like I don't think he had a name actually.
Tony was the private pooper, right? Private pooper.
Yeah. So this episode, the B story was with Rick, and Rick has like a special toilet that he has on like a special planet that's only for him, and he finds out some alien used it. And his B story, the entire episode, is him like going Liam Neeson Taken style on this toilet, trying to track down who fucking took a dump on his toilet. And he eventually finds the alien, and it's played by Bernard from Westworld. Mr. Jeffrey Wright.
That's what I was remembering.
That was a pretty good voice acting performance from him as well. Like he didn't half-ass it. He didn't phone it in. That was pretty good shit.
It was such a weird encounter. He's like, "Hey man, I just really like the view up here. It's a nice toilet. Yeah, I know it's a nice toilet."
Yeah. And then Rick, like, throughout the episode, like, once he finds out who the alien is, he, like, does all these really extreme things to get him to not do it, but the guy just keeps doing it to the point where he ends up murdering him. And this is where the show starts to show a really weird thing that's new to the show that perpetuates through season 4. Introspective Rick.
Well, it started at the end of season 3 when he tried to kill himself or whatever.
Yeah, kind of. I think that was like a soft introduction to it, but it goes hard in this season. Like so after he kills the alien who took a shit on it, he goes to the funeral of the guy and goes up to the dad and just gives him like $8 billion and like, it's just like, here's this and this, here's some like free replicator technology and 1,000 girls blowing you a day for free. Like he just gives him everything in the world he could possibly think of because he feels bad. And then he goes back and he ends up sitting on his toilet and you find out that he programmed a bunch of hollow Ricks to make fun of him for sitting on his toilet and not sharing it with the alien with like sad music. And that's the end of the episode. It ends like that. It was so weird.
Yeah. Again, I think it's these writers. They're trying to be big brain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. Overall, the A plot, though, was just like a parody of Tinder culture. Again, like, we're just talking, most of these episodes are just parodies on something specific. The app that he develops is like Tinder, but exaggerated to the point where you meet your soulmate, you kiss them once, and then the app rings again and says, "Oh, nope, you have a new soulmate. Time to move on." And I don't know. I like the B story way more. I didn't really think the A story was that great.
Mark my words. You know what season 4 gave me the feeling of? That season 5 is going to introduce a diverse character, and that diverse character is going to get a spinoff.
Oh boy.
That's the feeling you get from season 4.
Well, I hope you are wrong about that. But one last thought on episode 2. My favorite part of the entire episode is when it's just Sam Neill as the alien Palpatine and his wife, the Queen. And like the Queen is like making fun of him for like the Emperor Palpatine tubes that he has connected to him. And Sam Neill is just like, "These tubes are cool and I want a divorce." Like that fucking line cracked me the fuck up. That was great.
Legendary. Oh my god.
But that brings us into third episode, which is an Ocean's 11 parody. And wow. I think they kind of jumped the shark with this one. I don't know about you, but this was, when I watched this episode, this is when my brain was sort of like going, uh-oh, red alert.
Trying to remember, what was episode 3? Episode 3,
it's just it's a heist movie parody. Like, Rick and Morty split up, and Morty thinks that he can out-heist Rick, and Rick, as usual, uses an opportunity to show how much superior he is to Morty.
The Heistotron.
Yeah, exactly, Heistotron. There are a few laughs in this episode, but overall, I thought this was one of the weaker episodes of the season. It felt very tropey and very kind of not Rick and Morty. One caveat to that, though, is I fucking loved Elon Musk's cameo in this episode. It was brief but awesome.
Elon Tusk.
Yeah, what I loved the most about it was Rick's line where first of all, Elon Tusk is like, "What happened to your Elon Musk?" And then Rick's like, "Oh fuck, that guy's weird, I can't trust him." I love that part. I was just like, true. You're going to Elon Tusk for the real shit. But yeah, so the episode, it just ends up being a mechanism for Rick to convince Morty to give up his dreams and do whatever Rick says all the time. And just, that's like literally the
It was
end of
a
the
very
episode.
demoralizing episode.
It's like at the very end, they're in their spaceship, and then Morty's just like, I think you're right, Rick. I think I should just give up these dreams and just, do whatever you say and just have adventures with you, and I should just do that forever. And he just looks sad down. And then Rick looks at the camera and like lowers his Hollywood sunglasses and winks at the camera.
I don't know, man. When you just see Rick and Morty, he like submits his screen and play to Netflix at the end of the episode.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. Yeah,
and he's just reading it and he just loses it. He's just like, oh, this sucks.
yeah. And I guess this is a good time to mention any complaints I have about this season. They're legitimate, and I don't think this is a great season compared to the earlier seasons, but this is still good shit we're watching. Like, we're not dealing with like some really bad stuff. Like, this isn't like the Twilight Zone, Jordan Peele's The Twilight Zone or something like that. Like, we're not dealing with like a full-on takeover. This is still Rick and Morty, but there are just some worrying trends more than like straight up nuclear fallout.
Yeah. I don't know. I was at the end of the episode. It was really funny how he just like turns down Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, nah. I'm gonna adventure with my grandpa instead.
That brings us to the fourth episode, which is the How to Train Your Dragon parody.
This is where it got really weird.
Oh, yes, for sure. It starts off innocent enough. It's, hey, you told me you were going to get me a dragon. And then Rick begrudgingly gets him a dragon, but the dragon hates him. It doesn't want to hang out with Morty. But then after he's done hanging out with Morty, he ends up hanging out with Rick, and he fucking falls in love with Rick. And like while like Morty's like texting the dragon, like, hey, bro, come on, man, let's fly. Like he's literally getting plastered with Rick, like in the skies, just like drinking and having fun. And he's like, how do you deal with Morty? And Rick's like, I just usually ignore him. The early interactions with Rick and the dragon are my favorite part of this episode. They're really good until it gets weird. This
dragon has got some fetishes for sure. A couple kinks.
Yeah. So eventually, while they're ignoring Morty together, and they're just like, sort of like, yeah, man, like we kind of understand each other, and we're kind of just like entrepreneurs, and we're like one of a kind guys and stuff. And then like they have like the anime moment where like it locks eyes on both characters, and they look at each other like, oh, I love you. And then they like float into the sky, and a giant purple lightning beam like intertwines them, and they just start grunting sexually for fucking like 2 minutes straight. It's like one of the most awkward scenes to watch ever. You just like, you see a dragon and Rick in the sky floating, just like shaking uncontrollably in sexual ways, like grunting.
Rick, what just happened there? Did you have sex with that dragon?
Yeah, so Morty shows up and finds out that Rick had sex with his dragon. And the wizard shows up. He's like, no refunds. But Morty's like, fuck, man, my uncle just fucked my dragon. And he's like, oh, really? That's unforgivable. Okay. And the maid just starts whipping the dragon, calling it a slut for 30 seconds.
King shaming it.
Oh my god, what a weird fucking episode.
I think it was trying to teach us some weird, valuable lesson in the positivity of having sluts in the form of a dragon. I don't know. I mean, I'm all for sluts. Don't get me wrong. This is kind of weird that it was a dragon.
Yeah, and they went hard in the paint on it too. So like they end up going to like the wizard planet and they meet like more sex dragons and
they have a giant orgy.
They're literally like, the only way we can defeat the evil wizard is to have a giant dragon orgy. And I'm just like, what? Like, what? How did we get here, Justin Roiland? How is this the place we are inhabiting in 2020?
I think he's left the building. I think they've all left the building.
Yeah, so yeah, that whole plot line is resolved by a giant slut dragon orgy, and not much else to say about it. It was disturbing, and
it was a good episode.
There's more to come on that, but the fourth
solid
episode,
foundation.
The fourth episode also had a B story with Jerry. Do you remember that?
Did what?
Yeah, remember, like, there's a talking cat that just appears in their house and just starts talking to Jerry, and Jerry's like, "Hey Rick, what's up with this talking cat?" And Rick's like, "What are you talking about? I have no idea what you're talking about. Shut up, Jerry," and just leaves. And this cat is talking to Jerry, and it's voiced by Ferris Bueller, which was one of the weirder cameos in this season.
Fuck. I don't remember this.
Dude, this cat's like just like really chill, and he's just like, "Yeah, you know, I'm a talking cat, so what?" And Jerry's like, "But why do you talk?" And he's like, "Dude, don't worry about that, okay? I'm just a talking cat, just go with it." And he's like, "Hey Jerry, don't you want to go visit Florida?" And Jerry's like, "What? What are you talking about? Why would I want to go to Florida?" And he's like, and then the Ferris Bueller cat's like, "Well, you know, down in Florida, they play volleyball, and you know, they just have fun." And Jerry's like, "Yeah, they do play volleyball and have fun." And he's instantly manipulated by this talking cat, and they're just instantly on a plane down to Florida. And it cuts to fucking Jerry playing volleyball with the cat, and everything's going good until they find some cat shit in the sand. And some girl's like, "Oh, who the fuck did this? Who fucking did this? There's cat shit, or no, there's shit here," and they just blah, blah, blah. And then the cat points at Jerry and says he did it, and they all like turn on him like vipers. And I'm just sitting here like, listen, it's a talking cat. No one's questioning the fact a talking cat told you the human did it.
I think the whole scene is supposed to just, you know, show you how pathetic Jerry is.
It is.
Get framed by a cat.
It is. But so Jerry's kicked out of the social circle, and the talking cat goes onto the yacht with all his friends by himself. And it cues to the scene where there's like two gym bros talking to each other about like all like the sex positions they did to their girlfriends, and like these are like two obviously gay dudes that are like bragging about how they're having sex with women, and the cat just like, "Hey guys, so like is the point of this to just flat out lie about being attracted to women, or are you like trying to make it fictional so that like it sounds cool that you would have sex with women but you clearly don't?" And then like both like the gym rats just look at him like, "Fuck you, dude," and they throw him off the boat. And he just swims back to the beach and sits with Jerry, and they have like this little moment with each other. And I really enjoyed the fact that the cat like instantly turned on Jerry, but then instantly turned on his other friends. It's just a duplicitous cat.
Don't they scan the cat's brain at some point?
We're going to get to that. Okay.
Oh.
Moving along, yes. At the very end of the episode, Rick takes the cat and Jerry to like an alien planet to safely scan the cat's brain away from Earth. I don't know why they do that. It's really weird, but he literally takes them to a different planet. And he's like, "So cat, why do you talk?" And the cat does his little answer like, "Well, it doesn't matter, you know, just go with it." But then Rick does like a super energy cage around it and does all his technology tricks on it. and they look into this cat's brain. Do you remember what happens when they do this?
No.
Dude. So like, Rick puts goggles on, scans the brain, starts looking at it, and he like starts shaking, and then he just starts vomiting, and he's like, no, don't look at this. And then like fucking Jerry's like, oh no, I need to see this. I need to know why. And Rick just like shakes him like, you don't want to see this. It was super epic. And it reminded me of like the Event Horizon blood orgy scene that got censored from the X-rated version of Event Horizon. I think that's what they were watching in this cat's brain. They basically implied that this cat was literally Satan incarnate, and like watching what it was thinking would just make you vomit uncontrollably.
It was the Antichrist.
It was the
anti-cat.
Antichrist, yes. And what was even funnier is that Rick didn't kill it. He just told it to run away. And like the cat's like, but I don't have anywhere to go. And Rick's just like, just go. It's just like, literally like the personification of evil, the most evil thing Rick has ever seen in his life. And he's like, I'm not going to kill it. Let's let this thing live.
Well, maybe it wasn't evil. Maybe it was just what it saw.
Yeah. So, speaking of
Set
evil,
up.
Episode 5 is the racist snake episode. Broadcaster Nickels, what do you remember about the racist snake episode?
I remember Christmas lights. Man, some of these episodes have been so long since I watched them.
Yeah. So this episode begins with Morty murdering the first snake astronaut from some snake planet. So like the snake race, and it's funny too because they're not like human snakes. They're just little snakes that like act human. So it's kind of hilarious to watch. But so basically, like imagine just like an everyday snake you'd find on the planet Earth right now in a spacesuit. Morty finds it. The thing tries to bite Morty. Morty kills it. And that should be the end. They go home. But Morty feels bad. He's like, because Rick tells him, oh yeah, that was an astronaut, and it was the first astronaut of the snakes, and you killed him. You killed him, Morty. And so Morty's answer to this is he goes to a pet store on Earth and just buys a regular snake. And he puts it in the snake astronaut suit and drops it back on that planet, the snake planet. This begins one of the more interesting things of Season 4. In Season 4, there are several dialogue-free sequences that have music playing, where it's just a shitload of scenes going with no words being spoken. This one shows the sequence of this snake, the imposter snake, landing on the planet of the snakes, reintegrating into snake society. It is hilarious. Like it shows the imposter snake like on the NASA podium, like addressing everyone, like I'm the for the first snake in space, and like the announcer like goes up to the snake, is like, what are your thoughts on this? And then like the Earth snake just looks at him and just bites him. Because it's just a normal snake from our planet race. So, like, that whole thing was fucking hilarious. And it shows that, like, progress through, like, I want to say 8 minutes of no dialogue, just snakes interacting with each other on this planet is one of the more bizarre things. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was, like, a very bold directional choice that you won't see very often in animated shows.
I think I partially remember this. I don't think I ever finished it. I think I fell asleep.
You just remember, like, in a half dreamy haze, like a snake astronaut biting a snake announcer.
Well, I remember Morty killing the snake astronaut, and Rick like explained to him, but I don't remember anything past that.
Oh, that's the very beginning. That's unfortunate. Yeah, it was funny. That was the A storyline. The B storyline was garbage, and I'm not going to spend much time on it. But basically, in just this passing scene early on, Jerry was bothering Rick. So Rick's like, hey, Jerry, how about you leave me the fuck alone? And here are like some space shoes that'll make you fly. And Jerry's like, oh, that's cool. And so he puts these shoes on. And he just starts flying around Earth. And it's just like him, like one of the scenes is him going to like a basketball court with like a bunch of like ballers and be like, hey kids, let me show you how it's done. Give me the basketball. And like he's going to try and like dunk and like be cool. But instead of dunking, he just floats into the sky like a balloon and he has like no control. And he just flies up into the sky screaming, I need my other shoe that fell off. It's the dumbest. It's like the weakest B storyline in the entire season.
It's kind of a letdown with such a big name. It's big shoes to fill. Battlestar Galactica sucks.
But, so yeah, the A storyline eventually leads, it's funny, so you don't know any of this. Eventually, after that sequence with the snake on the snake planet, it leads to Snake Terminator. So, like, that snake ends up destroying the entire society of the snake planet, and then the
D-Day.
machines rise on the snake planet and creates Terminator snakes. And then the Terminator snakes come and invade Earth, too. But that's not before we see
That escalated quickly.
Before that, we actually see some more snake Nazis. So this is the second Nazi reference in season 4. Yeah.
See, I only thought there was one.
No.
Wipe the episode. Wipe the series. We're done. It's too woke.
But it ends with a snake invasion of Earth. So, like, they're just snakes robot Terminator snakes just teleporting onto Earth. And you see Summer and Beth fighting them off. And then at one point, they just stop. And they're like, what happened? And it pans to, like, these time cops that are like meatball heads. I don't think I've ever seen them in a Rick and Morty episode. They're just like a new alien race. They're like little stick figures with meatball heads. And they're called time cops. And they end the invasion of Earth by going to like the caveman days on the snake planet. And they just like sit there and they watch like a caveman snake drag another snake into his cave to like cook and eat him or some shit. And they just like murder that snake, and then all snake civilization ends, and that's the end of the episode.
I think they have shown up. Don't they look like ball sacks?
Maybe.
Didn't they have time cops once that like had like ball sack guns? And they got a hold of one. Remember that? It was like in season 2 or something.
Maybe. I'm kind of fuzzy on it. They might have appeared earlier, but I couldn't quite put a finger on it. But yeah, it was pretty interesting how loosey-goosey they've made the plot lines in season 4. Like they make it a point to say that none of this matters. This is all bullshit. Don't try and apply like a fucking continuity to this show because it ain't happening.
We don't pay them enough to make that. All right, so don't pay attention that much.
So, episode 6, and this is the first episode of the second half of season 4. So there's a big break between the snake planet and this episode, which is the space train. And the space train is just full of people who want to kill Rick.
This was a really good episode.
This is a good episode, and one of the reasons is because Paul Giamatti is playing the villain. And he's very good.
The story lord.
The story lord, yes. This episode is just 100% fourth wall breaking. Like, this is Deadpool level fourth wall breaking in this episode. It sort of is a parody of Inception, because as these characters in this train are going through these scenes, like, they'll die or something will happen, and then they'll, like, sort of telepathically appear in a different life, like they just woke up from a dream, but then they'll still be in the dream, and they'll go a level deeper, and it goes into, like, that whole, like, the way Inception dealt with, like, layers and, like, deeper and deeper, and, like, how do you know you're out of the dream? That's basically what they're doing in this episode overall.
Yeah, isn't the whole point of it is that Paul Giamatti, story lord, like he's trying to like sap their story potential, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or something like that.
Yeah. It felt much more like a traditional Rick and Morty episode than a lot of this season did.
Yeah, seeing the evil Rick and Morty, or it's not Morty. No, it was Morty who's commanding the army in one of the stories. That was fucking hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a collection of flashbacks, basically. Like, it'll introduce a character that hates Rick, and then it'll show you why they hate Rick. And it's like this little short story of some shit that happened between the two of them early on. Some of them are better than others, but... Well, my favorite was the ticket please guy. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
This was some real Hellraiser shit, by the way. This was like...
I think they were making fun of God, what's Wes Anderson? What's his name? The guy does like the Grand Budapest and shit.
Yeah.
There's one where there's a train.
Yes.
And what's his name? The guy that played the Hulk, American History X, Edward Norton.
Yeah.
Pretty sure they're making fun of him.
It doesn't surprise me because this whole season is sort of in that vein. But there's more cum talk in this episode.
It's a reoccurring theme.
It is. Almost every episode of this series mentions cum in some way or another.
I think it's the underlying Illuminati satanic ritualistic undertones that Duncan Trussell is telling us about, man. Cum is the seed of life. They want to impregnate the demon.
And that's why,
anyways, carry on.
That's why Broadcaster Nickels always takes his hydroxychloroquine to keep the demon seed away.
I fight demons, bro.
But so the ticket please guy, they end up murdering, and they murder him by shoving him out of a window, and the window ends up cutting his torso off. And as his torso cuts off, he wakes up from the train in like Chuck E. Cheese with his family. He's like, "Oh fuck, I was having a bad dream," and blah blah blah. And this is one of those, like what I was saying, this is sort of like an Inception parody. This is sort of what I mean by it. It's like he wakes up and he's like, "Oh yeah, that was just a dream," blah blah blah. And then like they're like, "What happened in the dream?" And then he's like, and then like his torso rips off and he starts floating in the air at Chuck E. Cheese and just raining blood upon all the children, and he's clearly still in the dream. And this is a pretty harrowing scene. I don't know if you remember it very well, but it was pretty harrowing.
How'd they escape?
Escape the train?
Yeah.
Oh, we'll get to that. So after the spinning, raining blood at Chuck E. Cheese scene, we go back to Summer and Beth, and I don't even remember exactly what they were doing, but they end up calling Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who just died recently in real life. And I find that a very weird coincidence because I've never seen Ruth Bader Ginsburg in anything except for this one episode of Rick and Morty.
Telling you, dude, simulation.
Yeah, this is like the simulation kind of like giving you a shout out when you see shit like that. You're just like, what the fuck? But yeah, the villain of this episode is the writer of this episode. In a very fourth wall breaking way, Paul Giamatti is the conductor of the train, and he's also the writer of the episode. And the whole point of the episode is him sucking the excitement and like the story ingenuity out of his characters to power his train. Very bizarre, but
I think it was symbolic. I think they were trying to tell us a warning of Rick and Morty, and Paul Giamatti was there to say it.
Yeah, but either way, the Story Lord was probably the best villain of the week of this season.
No doubt.
He was fucking excellent. And the episode ends with them defeating him and it panning out to show Rick and Morty playing with a train set in their living room in real life. And then you realize that the entire episode took place on a toy train Rick brought Morty instead of in the living room.
They're playing trains in the living room.
Yeah. So like, talking about fourth wall breaking, they do all this shit, and then they're just like, and that entire episode was bullshit. They're just playing with the train set in the living room. That's the real episode, is them just playing with the train set, and Rick.
No, the real story is Morty's fucking retarded.
and Rick sitting there like telling Morty how proud of him he is because he bought something. This was one of the weird like undercurrents of the season that a lot of people probably won't pick up on very much. But this rant Rick does about consumerism is like low key one of the greatest Rick rants of all time. He's just like, I'm so proud of you, Morty. You went into that store and you saw that and you said, I'm going to buy that because I have money, because I know people with money and they're going to buy that for me and I want it. And you know what, Morty? You did it. You got it and you bought it and you fucking bought that shit. And I fucking love buying stuff, Morty. And it's like one of the... I'm not doing it justice. It was just fucking an amazing rant. And I think that was the real highlight of an otherwise great episode in its own right, is that fucking rant at the end. Because it ends on
I think it was meant to break the whole linear idea of the episode.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just going to rant about fucking commercialism and consumerism.
Yeah, and that brings us to episode 7, which, man, this one comes out hot as the grossest episode of the season. And there are a lot of gross episodes in season 4. Like, almost all of them are pretty gross. But
it was a really weird premise.
My God. So this is the Alien parody episode. It starts off with Rick and Morty walking around with face huggers over their mouth. They're like these little squid aliens that just live over the mouth and just shit into the human's mouth as they're, infecting them and controlling them. And just randomly, somehow they resist the face huggers and murder them. And they wake up and they're like, oh, fuck, what's happening? What's happening, Rick? What's happening, Morty? And they escape the planet. And this was one of my favorite like action scenes of the season. It basically shows them in the ship just like blowing this alien planet to smithereens as they're leaving. Like, fuck you, facehugger bitch, just like blowing everything up they can see as they're escaping. And then randomly they come up about like the two towers, like basically an alien version of the two towers. And like it just gets really solemn real quick. And like the music cuts down and they just kind of get quiet and look at each other like, and they shake their heads at each other like, no. And they get past the two towers and then they see Pearl Harbor right after, like, that's okay though, right? And they're like, yeah, fuck it. They go in and bomb Pearl Harbor. And I found it interesting that this is one of the first 9/11 jokes I've ever seen in my life. How many 9/11 jokes have you seen?
It's not too soon anymore, Daniel.
No, it's not. Is this the first you've seen? In a television show?
No. On a television show, yeah.
Or a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen stand-up. I've seen stand-up comics do 9/11 jokes. I have never seen a TV show or a movie do a 9/11 joke till this.
I can't think of one, no.
Yeah. But, yeah, it's pretty funny. So they escape the planet and they just go back to Earth and everything's fine. They're eating dinner at the dinner table and like Rick is like sitting here telling the story and like everyone at the table is sort of just like, so wait a second, you did a 9/11? So you did a 9/11? He's like, no, we almost did a 9/11.
No. When they see those towers and they look at each other.
Oh, man. And I really like the line from Rick where he's like, look at that. Getting political. I'm political now.
I'm political now.
So at one point, Jerry like interrupts them all to say that he's taken up beekeeping. Which I like the way they wrote Jerry in this season. Like they really doubled down on the patheticness of Jerry.
He's just a lost soul. Anything that gets his attention, he puts 100% into.
And then like Rick starts mocking him for his beekeeping, and Jerry's like, I'm sorry, I didn't 9/11 Pearl Harbor before breakfast, but I have a life too. I have dreams. That's the best Jerry line of the season, in my opinion. There's a few good Jerry lines in the season. That was the hitter for me.
No doubt.
But right after that, Beth's like, so where's Summer at? And they look at each other, Rick and Morty, and like, oh fuck, we forgot Summer at this alien planet. So they fly back to the alien planet.
Not the first time they forgot Summer.
No. And they land and they start fighting the aliens, and they just randomly put like Power Ranger Gundam suits on, which weird, okay, but you know,
it's whatever.
It's like one of those random things where it's like, I guess, okay. And they fight through, and they eventually find Summer, and they realize that she isn't a face hugger and that she's actually controlling the face huggers. And she then explains to them their past as face huggers. And this is another one of the most disturbing scenes in this entire show. I've said that a few times in this season, and this is no different. So first of all, it shows them basically talking to like this religious leader who is like explaining to them why these other versions of the aliens are like heretics because they don't want to follow the path of God or whatever. And they're like, what is the path of God? And they're like, well, you live for a half hour, then you shit out an egg and die. I really liked like the sudden impact of that scene. Like at first you're kind of just like, you don't really know what's going on with these face huggers, like if they're evil or good, or who's the bad guy or who's the good guy or what. And then they say that, and you just see this dude just shit out an egg and die right in front of you. It's one of the grosser things I've seen in the show, but I've seen so many gross things now that it's like hard
real,
to count.
though.
It is real. Then this is the really disturbing part. After that, the Rick and Morty facehugger versions go back to their house, and like they have this little heart to heart, and they're like, man, I just don't know what I'd do without you. And he's like, I don't know what I'd do without you. And they look at each other, and then they make the face huggers on Rick and Morty make out with each other while Rick and Morty voice act it. What the fuck? Like what were these writers smoking in this season, dude?
I'm telling you, bro, they were like just trying to be. They were trying to like embody the spirit of Rick and Morty writing. They were trying to impress people.
I guess, man. I have a pretty strong stomach. I watched the season. I'm just like, holy fuck, man. They are pushing the envelope with the just. Can you imagine if this show came out in the 90s? It would have been rated NC-17 and buried.
Yeah. This would have been too much for prototype Adult Swim, bro.
Dude, in 2020, they just put this on the Netflix Kids channel and say, fuck it, we're done. Like, it's crazy how the goalposts have been moved for this type of shit.
It's the age we live in.
But, yeah, the episode ends with Rick and Morty back on Earth. And the episode's over and everything's okay, and like they get stomach aches, and you're like, "Oh fuck, they're gonna shit an egg and die now."
This is my favorite part of the episode.
And then it goes all the way through, and it goes to there, and they just end up shitting their pants. And that's it.
I love a good old shit joke.
Yeah, they went full Nadler and took a dump, and
I love it too because they're all like, they all think they're about to burst open and die, and they're just like, bye, man. Love you, kids. The best thing that ever happened to me. And they shit themselves.
And that brings us to episode 8, with starts with Rick showing up on some weird industrial planet to do a gem deal, and him explaining to Morty that we're going to jump in a vat of acid, but it's fake acid, and we're going to fool these people, and it's going to be my greatest trick ever.
I don't know why I like in the beginning of this episode, but it's like when the bones go up in the vat, and the guy's just like, "Wow, that's a lot of bones." Like there's like so detailed too. Like I don't know why I laugh so hard.
Yeah.
They clearly just throw a rat in there, and a human body just floats up. They're like, wow, I swear that looks like a human body.
Yeah, so it's basically a vat of water that's food colored green with snorkels, and they have like a locker of bones to send up to act like they got dissolved in acid, and it's this whole thing. And the acid hiding ends up failing, and they
had an acid skeptic amongst them.
An acid skeptic. And then we get a quick cut to Rick and Morty escaping on their ship, with Morty basically making fun of Rick, saying like how big of a failure he is for this shit, which I found to be interesting because of how big of a failure Morty is in general. For him to like be opening his mouth felt a little weird. Like, I mean, Rick has a 99% success rate. You have a 1% success rate.
Yeah, honestly, it made me think it was Robot Morty because of how proficient he was being. I was like, oh shit, this might be Robot Morty.
Yeah. I really like episode 8, but I think this is one of the spots where they kind of made a mistake, is they made Morty not like Morty. It just wasn't really him. Rick was perfect, but Morty, especially early on, like you just said, you thought it was Robot Morty because they weren't writing him like actual Morty.
Yeah, it's weird because like Morty's the one, like he's the one telling Rick to make the devices and shit. It's a weird episode.
Yeah. So it ends up being like they're fighting all the way home. They get to the garage. They're still fighting. And Morty's like, you never do any of my ideas. And then Rick calls the dragon episode that we just talked about. They're like, oh yeah, your idea is to fuck a dragon or whatever. And Morty's like, that's not the idea I'm talking about, okay? I'm talking about the video game device. And he's like, oh yeah, so you can save and go back and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, do you have any idea how much work that'd be, Morty? And Morty's like, yeah, because you can't do it, can you? And then Rick's like, fuck you, Morty, I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna fucking make it, Morty. And so Rick starts making the device, and he eventually gives it to Morty. And then we get to this second half of the episode that is just Morty playing with this device. Morty basically just constantly doing fucked up shit and then resetting it. He goes to the pool, he goes to the store, he does all this stuff, and he just keeps resetting it until he meets this girlfriend of his that he falls in love with. Then he decides he's never going to use the remote again.
I just want to say that when he tries to do the diving board and gets scared and resets, people laugh at him. He just casually clicks the button as he walks away. That's the most Morty thing all episode. It was. Nothing will change, Morty. You still suck.
So this comes up to another one of those long dialogue-free sequences that we mentioned earlier on, where it's showing Morty and his girlfriend going through life.
Yes, like this is a Loveness episode for sure.
Yeah, on a supercut, basically. And then eventually it goes full Alive. Have you ever seen Alive, Broadcaster Nickels?
No.
Alive is a true story based on a plane crash that happened where it was up in the mountains. It might have been the Alps or something. And a bunch of people in a plane crash, a bunch of people survive, but they're like so far in the mountains they'll never get help. And eventually they run out of food and they start eating the dead people.
Nice.
That's exactly what happens in this episode of Rick and Morty. They literally lifted the entire premise of Alive for this sequence. And you see Morty thinking about using the reset button when he's about to eat a human being. It's like, okay, maybe it's time to hit this reset button because I like my girlfriend and all, but I don't want to eat a human. He ends up eating the. He ends up eating.
That's the darkest turn. I did not see. He just looked at her tits. He's like, nah, I ain't losing that. He's like, she's like Megan Fox, man.
Yeah. So Morty miraculously survives without using the reset device. You know, they get rescued and everything, and it's like happily ever after, and they're just in this casual scene in the living room. Everyone's cool, and then Jerry just happens to reach for the remote. He grabs the time save state device and hits the button and resets it, which is one of the most Jerry things in the history of the show as well.
Jerry going forward to the next 3 episodes, or 2 episodes, probably are his best. Mm-hmm. He continually gets more and more Jerry.
Yeah. This was like the setup piece for that. So after the time reset, Morty goes to Rick and he's like, "Man, you're right. This sucks. You're trying to teach me a lesson, and I get it now, Rick. You know, I get it. This was a bad idea. Here, take it." And then Rick's like, "You're right, Morty, but there's one thing you're wrong about. You weren't resetting anything. Every time you jumped, you murdered Morty. You murdered yourself. There are thousands and thousands of mutilated Mortys out there in each of these dimensions that you jump from." And it does like a smash cut showing each Morty just being eviscerated by some crazy... I like how Rick went out of his way to make sure each death was unique. Like, it's not like every single one died of the same thing.
He was getting some anger out.
It just shows like this scrolling view of different Mortys dying to different causes as he's lecturing Morty on how dumb he is. That was great. That was one of my favorite parts of the entire season when that was going down.
It's definitely one of the most Rick moments for sure.
And then Morty's like, "You're a monster.
You're so dumb. I was murdering multiple versions of you this whole time. So you have a better life. Does that make you feel good?"
Fucking Morty basically is like, "You're a monster. You're a murderer." And then Rick's like, "My hands are clean, Morty." That was one of my favorite Rick lines of the season. "My hands are clean, Morty." And then right after he says that, the garage just like flings open and there's like a SWAT team outside. and Rick's like, "Oh no, who could have called these cops? Oh wow, is that a vat of acid sitting in the front yard that you could hide in?" Oh my god, I was rolling so hard at this point. This end of this episode was so perfect.
Well, it is because it starts with fucking Morty getting an ego because he had one good move at the beginning.
One good move.
He talks shit on his vat of acid. It comes full circle.
Oh my god! And so Morty gets in and it works, and Rick basically forces him to admit that his idea was correct and that Rick is the alpha. And the entire episode ends up just being Rick teaching Morty a lesson for getting uppity. It's so basic yet so primal. But this leads us to episode 9, which is the Jerry episode.
It is truly.
So it starts out with Jerry in the car taking his family camping with Rick in the back seat rolling his eyes. And Jerry's like, "Don't you dare take over this trip, Rick. This is my trip." And then Rick's just like, "You know what? You're right. I'm just going to check out of this one." And he hits a button and like the car just like goes transformer mode and like sends him to the front seat, puts Jerry in a box in the cargo in the back trunk. And then they just fly off the planet to some random planet. And you get there and you find out that Rick had sex with the planet. Like literally he fucked a planet and impregnated it. And when they get there, the planet is just spewing
out of this giant fucking hole. This
giant fuck hole is just spewing all these golem Ricks
It's so gross.
It's like not visually gross, but like the way your brain processes it makes it gross. You're just like looking at this, you're like, this is wrong. I don't want to look at this. But they realize the Golem Ricks are fucked up. They're like retarded. So
Golem Ricks.
Rick and Beth are like, oh, let's do a buddy team up and let's like engineer these Golem Ricks to make them a good society. And so they go inside of like this machine layer of the planet. This is one of the parts where I was a little confused by. It was like, it's this planet, but then there's like this factory inside of it, like it's a machine, and it's processing these children like it's an assembly line. Very weird. But what they end up doing is they end up dividing them like, oh, you're going to be a lawyer, and you're going to be a cop, and you're going to be a realtor, and like they had like these little
the choir.
And then eventually they're like, well, there's this small subsect of them that are just worthless. They're not productive.
The undesirable.
Like, well, let's just send them down into the sewer. And so they send these ones down in the sewer. And this begins the B plot. So Jerry is still trying to camp on the alien planet with his kids, and his kids just savage him. This scene made me feel uncomfortable to watch. Just because, like, watching his kids talk shit to him the way they do in this scene is just like, ooh, God. I hope that's not me someday. Jesus fucking Christ.
Jerry's a special kind of suck.
Yeah, it was bad. And, like, Morty was cutting, but the way they made Summer talk to him was like, oh, God, like, Jesus Christ. How could you say that to your dad? And he gets pissed and he just bounces, right? And he finds the undesirable Rick golems at the bottom of the sewer, and he becomes their fucking leader.
Which is like the best part of the show.
Yes, him interacting with the retarded Golem Ricks was fucking hilarious. Like, them just making these shitty structures and him being like, hey, you can make the structure better by doing this.
What is this? Well, I gave it a door so you can get out of the rain. No, this isn't camping. If it has a door, then you don't want to go outdoors anymore. Well, what about them? Those are bad people.
So
I love it.
Yeah. After this, Morty and Summer find some crashed alien spaceship and start huffing space drugs. This part was a little weird.
Another weird turn.
Yeah.
Just out of nowhere, Summer's just like this deviant stoner, just sucking on alien fumes.
Yeah, and it reminded me a lot of the medical facility in Idiocracy. Remember in Idiocracy where Luke Wilson gets to the hospital and they're like, okay, attach this one to your mouth, attach this one to your ear, attach this one to your butt. And then he does it. And then like all like the tentacles like get mixed around and they're like, okay, now put this one in your butt, put this one in your mouth. That's totally what that spaceship reminded me of, where they were sucking gas out of these tentacles in the spaceship.
What did she say when she takes the initial hit? She's like, because they were like, I think this is alien consciousness or something like that. And she takes a fat rip and she's just like, I think we're good, dude.
Yeah, and from here, we cue back to Rick and Beth, and a sentient god cloud shows up to claim ownership of the Golem Ricks. Apparently they're his kids. And this leads to a galactic space battle between Rick and Zeus, I guess.
This is the weirdest part of the episode.
Oh, this might be the weirdest part of the entire season. This was a really weird scene. It's like them in space, and like they draw this weird bubble around Rick to like say he has like some sort of bubble shield that protects him as a human in space, but it's like, this is Rick and Morty. Do you really need to do that? Like, this is fucking nonsense. Why do you need to like, oh, he has to have something that's keeping him alive in space? That,
well, I
like,
mean, it's Rick. He's a mad genius. Why not?
Yeah, I guess, but the whole fight was just ridiculous, and then it ends up that Rick can't beat him by himself, and he has to use his stoner grandchildren to fly an alien plane through the god's skull in space.
Yep. Really far out there.
God damn. What a weird... This is a weird fucking episode. One of the weirdest in the entire season. So, they kill the sentient cloud.
They killed the sentient cloud. Who's the real daddy.
And everything's like, okay, and then like they go back down to the planet, and Beth's like, Jerry, don't be a bitch, and Jerry's like, I want to be a bitch, and then like some more.
What was the cloud's name?
Oh God, I don't even know.
Reggie. Wasn't it Reggie? Yeah, it was Reggie. It was some flaky dude's name, you know, someone you think that would desert somebody.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I don't remember the name, but if it had a name, I don't know.
I'm pretty sure it's Reggie.
Reggie does sound familiar. It might be Reggie. But so Beth falls into a crater, and then Jerry ends up saving her, and Beth's like, "Oh, I love you again, Jerry." And Gaia, the planet, basically tells them to get the fuck out, and they do, and they go back to the car, and then Jerry's still in his like indigenous makeup in the backseat. It's like, you know what, kids, you were right. I am a bitch, and I just wanted to make you go camping because I'm a bitch. And then fucking Rick's just like, by the way, your kids were huffing space drugs and they murdered a god or something like that. And that was the end of the episode.
That was one of my favorite episodes, to be honest. It probably was my favorite. I'm not quite sure yet. I like the end of that episode a lot. Like the way that Rick just like just drops that and then it just cuts. That was pretty good. But yeah, that's a pretty good episode, I would say. And that leads us into the final episode, episode 10, where we find out that Beth is a clone and the real Beth is in space and she's a mercenary. This is actually an episode for them Rick and Morty lore nerds. Because we all know that this was teased in a previous episode.
Perhaps, but basically we see Space Beth realize she has a bomb in her head, and she goes to Rick's house and greets him in the garage and says, "Why'd you put a bomb in my head, Dad?" Then they toss Pokemon at each other. That was interesting.
That was really weird.
They actually used the real Pokeball, too. I was like, what? How did this happen?
It was slightly different. They're not getting sued.
But the B story of this is Summer and Morty fighting over an invisibility belt, which is some more weird, like, incest-adjacent shit in this B story where I'm just kind of like, okay.
Yeah. It was kind of weird. But then again, the shower scene was pretty funny.
Yeah, there's some good laughs in episode 10, but the space ants come and they follow Space Beth to Earth and they invade. Then they abduct her to a Death Star. Really weird. Even Rick, even before you even know it's a Death Star, he's like, "Oh God, you're gonna make me do a Star Wars, aren't you? You're gonna make me do a Star Wars," and it cuts and they go to the.
You're talking about the NXC8 Wrangler edition. I personally was a fan.
Yeah, and so the space ants abduct both the Beths and put them in a jail cell together, and they both realize that they don't really know who the clone is and isn't, and they're fighting about who the real clone is, and eventually, in trying to rescue them, Rick encounters Birdman, or Bird Person, resurrected as a god.
It's PP, Phoenix Person.
PP. Yes, PP. And so we get our PP boss fight, and it's kind of interesting, I guess, but overall a little weird ending to the season, and it goes back to the Beths like kind of broing out, and they're like, well, I don't really care if I'm the real Beth. You're just as real to me as I am to you, right? And they're like, yeah. And they're like, oh, who cares about the real Beths? And then Rick's like, well, wait a second. I know who the real Beth is. I have it stored in this memory engram, which was really weird. Like, Rick is not the type of person to take a memory away and hide it on a fucking crystal. But
he is. There's a whole episode dedicated to it.
About his daughters, who the clone is and isn't, though?
Yeah, he's fucked up.
I don't know. I thought that was weird, but what ends up happening is that neither of the Beths want to know the truth, which you're just like, as the viewer, you're looking at it like, fuck you, shut up, yes you do. And they're like, nope. No, we don't. And then,
no one wanted to know, and Summer or Morty. It was kind of sad.
Then the grandchildren are like, nah, I don't care.
I got two badass moms, don't fuck this up.
And then we're gonna circle back to the weirdness of the introspective Rick with the sad song and the weird dramatic ending. He looks at Engram himself.
Second time they did this.
They start playing sad music. He starts to see himself cloning Beth, and then he purposely turns away and then spins them around so he never knows which Beth is the real Beth or not. So even in this memory crystal engram, he doesn't know. No, it's like there's really no way to ever know. That's like the point of it. And then it just ends with him sitting in a chair with sad music and it fades out. And that's the end of season 4 of Rick and Morty. And is there more of a perfect ending to such a weird season that you just don't quite understand like what was happening?
Yeah. I'd say Rick just wants the writers to change. I could agree with him. He wants his family back. He wants Harmon and Roland back.
Yeah. Yeah, so
they just leaned on so many tropes, and the fact that they ended the final episode with like the same way season 3 ended was just kind of weird.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It was a bizarre ending to a bizarre season, and the fact that we know for sure there's going to be like 6 more seasons makes it even weirder, because it's like, where do you go from here? I'm a little worried.
Oh, I know exactly. Couple kill-offs, some diversity hires, couple spin-offs. You know what's coming.
Yeah. It probably is. I don't know, man. Dan Harmon is such a fucking rabid SJW, but I don't think he really has power on the show. I think it's really Justin Roiland's show at this point. I'm not sure where Justin Roiland falls in this type of arena, but based off of the writing staff that he hired for season 4, I'm assuming he's the showrunner. It's his show. If not him, who? I'd say that's a pretty clear indication of where we're going. So
yeah, I know. I just got the same feeling you get when you watch the first 3 seasons of Family Guy. You know, you're just like, you watch those and then you go in and you're like, oh, something changed.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still funny. But then every season progressively loses its soul.
Yep. That's probably a very apt comparison, because goddamn, were the first couple seasons of Family Guy so much different than what came after. It's sort of amazing. how quickly that show transformed. Hopefully that doesn't happen to Rick and Morty, but we'll see. That being said, Broadcaster Nickels, what is your favorite episode of season 4?
I'm going to have to go with, I think it's between 8 and 9. I'm going to go with 9. I think, what's it called? Childrick of Mort.
It was like Childrick of Mort.
Yeah, Childrick of Mort.
Yeah, episode 9 was very solid. It would be probably my top 3, but my favorite is episode 8, the Vat of Acid episode.
Yeah, it's a strong one.
It was strong all around, beginning to end. It had the ending. It had everything. And man, I cannot understate how fucking satisfying it was to watch that garage door open, see the SWAT team out there, see the vat of acid, and look at the face Rick makes towards Morty and says, "Oh, look at that. Looks like you have a perfect escape route. There's a vat of acid for you to hide." I don't know why, but that part just fucking, it hit for me. And it is definitely the most enjoyable moment of season 4 as far as I'm concerned.
For sure.
But that being said, least favorite episode of season 4.
Oof. That one is probably going to be, I think, probably number 2. The one with the dating app, the Love Finders or whatever. It was pretty, I mean, compared to everything, it was pretty, I mean, it's a good episode. I like the plot with Rick in the toilet, but overall, it's kind of just like a weird episode, especially how it ends. I was like, I don't really know what the meaning of this episode is. You're making fun of this guy for using your toilet the whole time, and then you just made fun of yourself in the end for getting rid of him.
Yeah. That episode is what raised the first red flag in my head that, we're not in Kansas anymore. The end of that episode with him just sitting on that toilet, like crying, basically, with like fading out as like all the hologram Ricks were making fun of him, was really weird. Like, it's just a really weird way to end an episode. So yeah, I'm gonna say that I agree with you. That is one of the weaker episodes, but I think there is a weaker episode, and I think it is the episode that comes right after. One Crew Over the Cuckoos, Morty. This is the heist episode. This episode put me to sleep twice. I actually fell asleep watching this episode twice, and it wasn't until the third time that I watched during the middle of the day that I could actually finish it.
Oh yeah, this is the Netflix deal episode.
Yeah. It was so dumb. It's like, okay, Ocean's 11, heist scene, we get the crew together, we're competing to steal something. It's just like, oh, Lottie fucking die. It was so fucking dumb. I did like High Spot, though. He was like the bright spot of the episode for me. But overall, I think episode 3 was the weakest episode in season 4. That being said, Broadcaster Nickels, we have a segment here on the Crack Cellar Podcast called The Hit, the Miss, and the Whiff.
You know what I just realized? That episode 3 is, I think, the only episode that Jerry isn't even in.
I think there's a few characters not in it.
Yeah.
I don't think... I don't know if Beth's in it. I don't know if Summer's in it. Are they?
I want to say I remember them. At least background. I was trying to think. I was like, what was Jerry doing that episode? But then I was like, Jerry literally was not in that episode.
Yeah, it's one of the few episodes where I don't think it had a B plot. I think it just had one plot. Most of the episodes had 2 plots, but that one, I think, only had 1. Either that or the B plot was so boring that I blocked it out mentally, which is possible.
Yeah.
That being said, Broadcaster Nickels, what is your hit?
I would have to say Jerry. Jerry's stepping it up.
Yeah.
Jerry really shined this season.
Yeah. And I really like the voice actor for Jerry, Chris Parnell. He's
Yeah.
he's an Archer too. He's really good in everything. Like, he's just a great voice actor.
I just love his reactions when he gets shit on and stuff. He has the perfect voice reactions.
Mm-hmm. My hit are those extended dialogue-free scenes that we mentioned throughout various episodes in the season. So the two that come to mind are the one from the first episode and the one from the Snake Planet episode.
Yeah.
And then there's also the one from the Vat of Acid episode? There's a few of them, but either way, I liked the gumption it took to do those, because cartoons typically don't want dead air. They don't want scenes with no one talking. It's just something that doesn't happen in cartoons very often. They just don't want to do it. It's like a faux pas in the genre. And for them to like blatantly go through, like, the one with the snake was the one that I like the most, because like you just see like Morty buying this fucking rabid snake from an Earth shop, putting it in a spacesuit and dropping it on some snake planet, and you just watch what unfolds in slow motion over the course of weeks, and it's fucking hilarious. You don't need any words for it because it's snakes. It's perfect. Like, they're fucking snakes, so they don't talk. It was genius. There's some other ones with humans that I liked as well, but the one with the snakes really stood out to me. It's like, yes, this is why you did this. This was a bold move, and I think it worked out perfectly. And I really, in season 4, there's not a lot that stands out compared to seasons 1 through 3. Most of it is inferior to seasons 1 through 3. I think this is one of the few spots where I think they improved on something. They did something new that I liked.
Indeed.
That being said, Broadcaster Nickels, what is your miss?
The miss. I think the miss is probably going to be just the overall continuity of the story. They didn't really continue anything that you would like. If you've been watching Rick and Morty for a long time, they still haven't like really shown you what like robot Morty's doing, stuff like that. It's just like, dude, come on. That was a whole season. We didn't get it once.
Yeah. And also, we've been seeing Cthulhu flying at them at the end of the intro for 4 seasons now, and we still don't have a Cthulhu episode.
Yeah.
That shit pisses me off every time I see that intro. I'm like, where the fuck's Cthulhu at, bitch?
Yeah, and then just this seems like they're like this season really just is just showing you that they don't really give a fuck about tying up loose ends at all. They're just going to continually throw outlandish things out there and never really tie them up.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that basically what happened here is that they confirmed that there will be no loose ends being tied up, because we're just going to go ahead and have new writers.
Yeah.
That don't give a fuck.
Birdman's the perfect example of that.
Yeah. And on that note, my miss is the writing staff. And I think my miss is the same as your miss. We're just kind of verbalizing it differently. You talked about story continuity.
Yeah.
I'm kind of talking about that too, but I'm calling out specifically the writing staff. This writing staff came on, I don't know if like they're fan fiction writers that like Justin Roiland got on the cheap or what, but there is a very amateurish vein in this season that you just don't feel like professional people are writing this show anymore. There are some bizarre writing choices that verge into incest, cannibalism, pedophilia. It's shock value. They just went for shock and awe. And it's like, this is Rick and Morty. We're used to shock and awe. Your answer should be nuance. It shouldn't be, let's just multiply the shock and awe times 5,000. It's lazy. And I think that this writing staff sucked. And the best thing that could happen for season 5 of Rick and Morty is to do another reset of the writing staff and get better people or get the old people. I don't know. Whatever works.
Get more Coke for Harmon. I don't know.
That does remind me of one line from the season that I really liked that I forgot about, where Rick was like, I don't know if I'm taking too much Adderall or not enough Adderall. I think it was in the Facehugger episode.
Yeah.
Rick was on point in this season. That is the one thing that you can come away with is Rick was still Rick. They didn't fuck him up too much. That being said, Broadcaster Nickels, what is your whiff?
The whiff. The whiff, the whiff, the whiff. I don't know. It's a hard one. I would say I'd say the whiff pretty much is them just crutching on movie ideas for all the episodes. You know?
Yeah.
There's a gimmick in every episode. I mean, some of them are funny, but some of them are just like, why'd you do that? But if I'm actually being super critical about it, I think it's honestly the Nazi theme. The reoccurring Nazi theme in some of the episodes is just like, I don't know what you're trying to do, but it didn't hit with me.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
I just don't like when things like, even if they're not trying to make a statement, it's like now you just left room on the table for people to make a side for you.
Yeah, well, part of the problem is that in the year 2020, Nazis are used as a prop to demonize normal people that aren't Nazis. So it rubs people the wrong way, and it's sort of also disingenuous because, like, when Rick called Morty fascist Morty, I was sitting there thinking, what a loaded term that is now when you call someone fascist. Because according to some people, 60% of the population of the United States of America is fascist. Which is patently bullshit.
Sounds like they're on the losing side, too.
But that is a definition that exists, and it exists within the Hollywood liberal circles, which Justin Roiland and Dan Harmon are very much entwined. So you get a weird feeling when you hear this. It's like, okay, are you saying that he's really a fascist? Are you saying that I'm a fascist because I don't agree with your politics? This is why it sucks that we know the politics of the creators of all these shows and all these actors. I think that we really need to go back to the days where we didn't know shit about actors and directors and writers. They're
mysterious, like Keanu Reeves.
Exactly. Dude, these guys could learn a lot from the Keanu Reeves arm hover. Okay? That's how you should treat life, my friends.
And not the Sam Neill grip. Don't do the Sam Neill grip. Do the Keanu Reeves hover.
Well, Broadcaster Nickels, as you know, here on the Crack Cellar Podcast, we use the official, patented Joker rating system. On that system, what do you rate season 4 of Rick and Morty?
All right, so before I say it, I want you to cut in right here, right before I say my rank. That super cool victory horn. I'm gonna say Heath Ledger, a C.
Oh, Heath Ledger's a B, but I get your intent.
Oh yeah, it is a B. I knew that.
Yeah, I think we're on the exact same page on this one. I'm also going to give it a Heath. Right, like a straight down the middle Heath, too. Not a weak or a strong Heath.
It's just straight down the middle Heath.
It is.
Is that like a golf term?
It could be, and it should be. But this is a good season. It's just not good compared to its past self. But if you were to separate it and just put it as its own standalone cartoon, it's pretty good. It's entertaining. The good outweighs the bad, for sure. But it is still a shadow of its former self. That is impossible to deny. Yeah.
It's the most pronounced feeling in the season.
It really is. And on that note, we will close out.
Sam Neill is not my father.
These tubes are cool and I want a divorce.
The results are in.